What happened on the Senate floor this week may represent one of the most dramatic fractures within the Republican Party we've witnessed in decades. According to multiple reports from Capitol Hill, a senior Republican senator delivered what observers are calling an unprecedented public confrontation, directly challenging a colleague's loyalty to both party and country in language that left the chamber stunned into silence. If you've been following the slow-building tension within the Republican conference, you know that disagreements behind closed doors have been escalating for months. But what allegedly occurred during this week's session crossed a line that veteran Senate watchers say they've never seen breached before. We're not talking about the usual procedural disagreements or policy disputes that characterize normal legislative friction. According to those present, this was a personal, visceral challenge to someone's fundamental allegiance, delivered in the most public form available to a United States senator. The reports emerging from multiple sources suggest that the confrontation wasn't planned or scripted. It appears to have erupted during what should have been routine floor proceedings, catching everyone from leadership to the press gallery completely off guard. The specific language used, including what multiple witnesses describe as the direct accusation of betrayal, represents a breakdown in the Senate's traditional culture of collegiality that has implications far beyond one heated exchange. To understand why this moment matters, you have to grasp the unique institutional culture of the United States Senate. This is a body that prides itself on decorum, on the tradition of referring to colleagues as the distinguished senator, even when disagreeing fundamentally with their positions. Senators routinely engage in fierce policy battles while maintaining personal relationships and professional courtesy. The unwritten rules that govern behavior on the floor are as important as the written ones, and according to those familiar with Senate protocol, what happened this week shattered several of those unwritten boundaries. The context surrounding this confrontation appears to center on recent votes and public statements that have created deep fissures within the Republican conference. Political analysts suggest that the breaking point came when certain senators began taking positions that their colleagues viewed as fundamentally at odds with party unity during a critical political moment. The pressure cooker environment of divided government, combined with looming electoral considerations and ongoing legal challenges facing prominent party figures, seems to have finally caused the institutional restraint to snap. What makes this incident particularly significant is the seniority and stature of the senator who allegedly delivered the confrontation. This wasn't a junior member acting out of frustration or inexperience. According to reports, this was a respected, long-serving Republican with significant influence within the conference, someone whose voice carries weight in internal party deliberations. When a figure of that caliber abandons institutional norms to deliver a public rebuke, it signals that the underlying tensions have reached a crisis point that can no longer be managed through private conversations or procedural maneuvering. Legal experts and constitutional scholars are pointing out that while dramatic, this type of confrontation represents the Senate functioning exactly as the founders intended. The chamber was designed to be a place where passionate disagreements could be aired, where senators could challenge each other's positions and motivations in defense of their vision of the national interest. However, they also note that the personal nature of the alleged accusations goes beyond traditional policy disagreements into questions of fundamental loyalty and character. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation appears to have sent shockwaves through both parties. Democratic senators, while likely pleased to see Republican unity fracturing, reportedly expressed concern about the breakdown in institutional norms. Several veteran members from both sides of the aisle are said to have approached leadership about the need to restore some measure of decorum before the situation escalates further. The worry among institutionalists is that once these boundaries are crossed, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the collegial atmosphere necessary for the Senate to function effectively. Political observers are analyzing this incident through the lens of broader party dynamics and the ongoing struggle for the soul of the Republican Party. The confrontation appears to represent a crystallization of the tension between different factions within the conference, each believing they represent the true conservative movement. What we may be witnessing is the public manifestation of a civil war that has been brewing privately for years, finally erupting in the most visible possible forum. The strategic implications of this confrontation extend well beyond the Senate chamber. If reports of the exchange are accurate, it provides a roadmap for how different factions within the party view loyalty, principle, and political survival. The senator who delivered the rebuke appears to be drawing a clear line, forcing colleagues to choose sides in a way that could reshape alliances and power structures within the Republican conference for years to come. Media coverage of the incident has been intense, with political reporters scrambling to verify details and understand the broader context. The challenge for journalists covering this story is separating the dramatic elements from the substantive political implications. While the theatrical nature of the confrontation makes for compelling coverage, the underlying questions about party unity, institutional norms, and political strategy are what will likely have lasting impact. The response from Republican leadership has been notably careful, with most statements emphasizing the importance of party unity while avoiding taking sides in the specific dispute. This measured response suggests that leadership recognizes the potential for the situation to spiral out of control if not handled delicately. The challenge they face is maintaining conference cohesion while allowing for the kind of robust internal debate that healthy political parties require. What makes this confrontation particularly dangerous for Republicans is the timing. With critical elections approaching and the party needing to present a unified front on key issues, public displays of internal discord can be devastating to both fundraising and voter confidence. The incident provides Democrats with ready-made talking points about Republican chaos and division, potentially undermining the party's efforts to focus attention on their policy agenda and criticisms of the current administration. The broader institutional implications of this confrontation cannot be ignored. The Senate relies on trust, mutual respect, and shared commitment to institutional norms to function effectively. When those foundations are shaken, as they appear to have been by this week's events, it becomes more difficult for the chamber to tackle complex legislative challenges or serve its constitutional role as a deliberative body. The concern among Senate observers is that this incident represents a further deterioration in the institutional health of American democracy. Looking at historical precedents, confrontations of this nature and intensity are rare, but not unprecedented in Senate history. Political historians point to various moments when personal animosity and ideological differences have boiled over into public displays of anger and accusation. However, they also note that such incidents often mark inflection points in party politics, moments when underlying tensions finally surface and force a reckoning that reshapes political alignments. The question now becomes whether this confrontation represents a one-time explosion of frustration that will be quickly contained, or the opening salvo in a broader internal party conflict that could fundamentally alter the Republican coalition. The answer to that question will likely depend on how other senators respond in the coming days and weeks, whether they rally around party unity or choose to align themselves with one faction or another. For the American public, this incident serves as a stark reminder of the deep divisions that exist not just between the parties, but within them. The image of senators shouting accusations of betrayal at each other on the floor of what is supposed to be the world's greatest deliberative body raises uncomfortable questions about the health of American political institutions and the ability of elected officials to work together in service of the national interest. The media ecosystem's response to this confrontation will also be worth watching. Conservative outlets may downplay the significance of the incident or frame it as a healthy internal debate, while others might use it to highlight concerns about party extremism or institutional breakdown. How these different narratives develop and which ones gain traction with various voter segments could influence the political impact of the confrontation well beyond the immediate news cycle. As we look ahead, the question that remains unanswered is whether the Republican Party can contain the damage from this very public display of internal conflict, or whether it represents the beginning of a more fundamental fracture that could reshape American conservatism. The senator who delivered the confrontation has forced a conversation about loyalty, principle, and party identity that can no longer be avoided or managed through private channels. Whether this becomes a defining moment that changes the trajectory of the party or simply another dramatic episode in an increasingly chaotic political era will depend on what happens next. The responses from other senators, the reaction of the party base, and the ability of leadership to restore some measure of unity will all play crucial roles in determining the lasting significance of what happened on the Senate floor this week. What we can say with certainty is that the traditional norms governing Senate behavior have been tested in a way that few observers expected, and the institution's response to this test will tell us much about its resilience and adaptability in an era of increasing political polarization. The confrontation may have lasted only minutes, but its implications could reverberate through American politics for years to come.